ladies and gentlemen, to Street Apologist Live. I'm your host, VOCAB Malone. Tonight is Monday, December 2nd, 2019, a little bit after 8 o'clock. And this is Street Apologist Live, the show where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. Tonight we're doing a little Bible study through Mark chapter 9, as you've already seen. And in that section, you got Jesus, spoiler alert, casting out an unclean spirit. An unclean spirit. And so that's why the show is titled the way it's titled. And, I'm here and we're about to get started. And so grab your Bibles and open up there right now to Mark chapter 9, if you could. Got Justice chilling in the back. Here, I'll give a better view of him real quick. Hey, Justice, how you doing? Justice. Hey, what's up? There you go. See, he's responsive. He just got disturbed a little bit, but he'll be all right. You know, he's a cool dog. You guys have seen him around a little bit here and there. So anyways, I don't like the lighting yet. I want to adjust the lighting a little bit. While I'm doing that, you guys go ahead and grab this link and share it, please. And if you could also go ahead and like this show. These Bible studies usually go an hour and a half. I try to leave some time for Q&A at the end, although it doesn't always work. Sometimes I get to interact with you guys at the Q&A as we go on, so we'll see how that goes. And there, I think I like the lighting a little bit better now. Yeah, I think that'll work. All right, about ready to get started here, ladies and gentlemen. Final adjustments are in order. And I'm going to be showing on the screen Logos. I use Logos Bible software, which a lot of you know. And if you use my name and a special link provided, you can actually get a discount on it. A lot of you guys know that too. Still don't like the settings, man. It's like every time I do it, stuff changes. I swear it's like every single time. That's why sometimes you see me making these adjustments. It's because like stuff keeps on changing, man. It's like I don't know what the deal is. I really don't like the way this stuff looks right now, but I got to go with it as is because we gotta get moving here. All right, so what's up? Shout out to the live chat. How y'all doing? We got some great people here. And before we get started, I want to make a quick announcement as well. Doing a show this Sunday, which I'm very excited about. You can see it on your screen right now. It's going to be called Kemet on Trial 2.0. Kemet on Trial 2.0. And with that, we're going to look into some of the claims of the religion that sometimes calls itself Kemetic science or Kemetic spirituality or Egyptology. Different names that you see, and I'm gonna have three fire guests on, as it were, that I'm very excited about. My man Chris Featherstone, you guys have seen him before. I've been on his program. Gonna have MJ Jackson. He's a great dude. He's part of Shield Squad, and then Nefertiti. She's a dynamite apologist, hailing from Florida. That means Florida. And that's coming up this Sunday around 7 o'clock my time, which is 9 o'clock East Coast. So the reason why I'm telling you this right now is because there is not going to be what's called a broadcast page. Technical terminology. A broadcast page is that announcement in advance where it sits on an empty page and you can come into the live chat and look at it and everything. You guys know when you guys do that. There's not going to be a broadcast page. I don't want to go into the technical details of why, but it basically has to do with the guests that we're having and how tricky it is to live stream, etc., etc., etc. So anyways, there will not be a broadcast page, but I'm telling you the show's happening. So by God's will, obviously, we are going to be doing this Sunday night, 9 o'clock East Coast, 6 o'clock West Coast, with these three guests, and it's going to be fantastic because we're going to be reviewing the Brother Jabari debate and Vince Bantu now that all three parts are out, as well as the Q&A. So I'm excited to have these three guests because they definitely know what they're talking about on this subject. So I think it's going to be very, very powerful. So mark that in your calendars. Plus, I'm taking part in Merry Vlogmas, and so because of that, the plan is I'm gonna have to fix this. I don't like this at all. I've never seen it this foggy, which that makes no sense. Why would it be foggy? I'm gonna have to mess around with this a little bit, everybody, because I do not like this. This is such a strange thing to have it be foggy like this. I do not understand. I'm not feeling this. Pretty odd. But with all that being said, that show's gonna be dope. And also, what I meant by Vlogmas is I'm gonna be, by God's grace, putting up one video, either a live stream, an upload, premiere, whatever, every single day in December. That's kind of like my Christmas gift to you, All right, so here's what I'm gonna do. Since I don't like this, I'm gonna actually unplug this right here, and I'm gonna start it over as far as my camera. So things are gonna change right now for just a second, okay? So don't freak out. All right, you got that. Now that camera actually looks better. Now that's not supposed to be the case. We are gonna get started. We're starting right now. So hope you're in Mark chapter 9. It's gonna be exciting, and I see we got a lot of people already joining. So seems like you guys might be excited as well. Huh. Strange. Turn down my gamma? What's that, bro? I actually don't know. What is my gamma? What's gamma? I don't see anything called gamma in here, bro. Sorry, I know. Alright, we're going to just get started either way. Huh. So it looks like the other one is... I'm going to have to switch cameras today. All right. We're going to have to go with the... No, I got a great camera. It's just that it's not as... It's not acting right today. So we're going to have to go with this one, which is a little bit different. All right. We need to get started, though, right now. I don't like this much messing around at the beginning, All right. Too much gamma, you become the Hulk. Turn down correction or turn up contrast. You guys are strange. Huh. All right. So I have to get this rolling. It's going to have to look like this today. It is what it is, people. It is what it is. All right. Mark chapter 9. I am about to bring it up here right now on the screen. And I'm going to show it to you so you can look at it on the screen itself. And I'm very excited about this, like I said. And so most of the time, we're not even going to have to really worry about that situation because we're going to be looking at this because we're going to have the Bible up here, all right? So no sweat. All right, let's take a look here in Mark chapter 9. Shout out to the live chat. We got about 70 people up in here. Had a lot of fun yesterday, by the way, guys. Thank you very much. It was a great time, no doubt. Okay. Here we are. I'm going to go through each line, and then we're going to break this down, and we're going to get into some stuff we don't totally talk about on a regular basis, which is demonic activity, because it's in this passage, you know what I mean, of Mark chapter 9. So first of all, let's look at some of the context here in Mark chapter 9. We're in the Gospel of Mark. It's a historical account about Jesus, focusing on his person and work, the message that he brought, but also who he is, what he did, what it meant. And as we look here, we come to chapter 9 of the Gospel of Mark, and we see a miracle starting in verse 14, because that's where we're going to be starting. But with that being understood, this is not the only miracle we see in the Gospel of Mark, right? We see, but depending on how you count them, because there's summaries as well in the Gospel of Mark. There's summaries of miracles. Jesus healed a lot of people in this place or whatever. And so there's 13 to 20 miracles. It depends how you count, okay, in the Gospel of Mark. But the most common type of miracle, interestingly enough, in the Gospel of Mark is the exorcism. There's 4 exorcisms in the Gospel of Mark, right? So the 4 exorcisms outnumber the other kinds of miracles by most counts. Mark is writing from Rome in all likelihood, even though he's originally a Jerusalem boy. It seems his mother's house was the place where the early church met, a.k.a. the upper room. So here's John Mark, my namesake, right? And he likes these because he wants to show the full power of Jesus. It's one of his interests, the power and authority of Jesus. This is a common thing. Shout out to Natalie and D. New and Nate and Michelle Marie. Much love to Johnny Torch. Let's talk about it. That's someone's name. I'm not saying let's talk about it. Shout out to Man241. Shout out to Dr. Funny. There's some other people. I'll get you guys later. So Mark has this particular miracle count we're going to look at today. But the other exorcisms are the synagogue demoniac in chapter 1, the Gerasene demoniac in chapter 5, the Syrophoenician's daughter in chapter 7, and now we come to the epileptic boy in chapter 9. Now, this type of text, these exorcism texts, a lot of times liberal New Testament scholars doubt the historicity of them, as you can imagine. Rudolf Bultmann was a famous German critic who wanted to demythologize the text of the Bible, he said. And so sometimes you hear those kinds of folks say, Jesus didn't, well, not Bultmann himself, I don't think he said this, but you hear also people who want to demythologize the New Testament who do it in a different way. They'll say Jesus didn't actually believe in the supernatural the way the people around him did, because really they were just superstitious. Hey, what's up, D-Wood? David Wood's in the house. Hey, since David Wood's here, I'm going to take a quick break just because he's always in and out. I don't know when he's going to leave. I was telling David this the other day. I think I was anyway. David is dope. No doubt, whatever success this little YouTube channel has, ultimately all glory goes to God. I work hard. Conman Mike works hard. Bri from the Shy works hard. The whole mod squad and the whole core, they all work hard. The essay squad, that's you guys. Everybody works hard. But a lot of the love we know comes from David Wood and what he's done. He's sort of like an anchor in the YouTube apologetics community. He's been very gracious to me and us that way. Now, with that being said, just like he gives me shine and he gives me love that helps and blesses me for what we're trying to do here, everybody should know it's like trickle-down economics. Now, whether you agree with it or not, the analogy is this. In the 80s, Ronald Reagan had a economic plan or program. And the idea was that the wealth would trickle down because rich people own businesses and it takes money to make money, and they're the ones who make jobs and create wealth, because wealth is not a fixed circle under a capitalistic understanding. And I think that aspect of it's true. All right. Now, with that being said, the idea is, all right, now, trickle-down economics in YouTube means David helps me get subs. David puts me on. David collaborates with me. All of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. Some people come, they get attracted. Other people leave, whatever. But it works. So then what happens is this. I'm not just sitting pretty. I'm not just going to chill. I'm going to do the same exact thing back. So I'm going to put on people that I see need shine, and they're already hitting it hard. They just don't have as much attention maybe as they should, because I think they're doing good work. Like my man Rick Caldwell. That video's got like 4,000 views when we uploaded it, but he's the one who did the work, right? But now hopefully that'll help grow his channel. My man over there, MJ Jackson's another example, having him on Sunday night. Adam Coleman and K-Dub are already doing their thing, but I try to help them any way I can, or whatever way I can. We like to premiere Faithful to God's videos when we can. my man Abu, even though he don't really care about nothing, you know what I'm saying, he just wants to be a nerd, try to, same thing. Hopefully there's some kind of help that comes to Nephronity. I know that it's definitely been helpful to Keisha Mack when she when that video was up here. It's doing good, right? We also got anyways, you get the point, right? Yeah, I hope the same thing works for Chris Featherstone. So I want every time people come on here that boom, 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 their subs go up and boom, 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 and every time we premiere a video on. So anyways, we're trying to ever increase the expanding circle because there's tons of atheists and Hebrew Israelites and Muslims all over YouTube and the internet, and the Christians are finally now getting started. So here we go. And that's part of the plan for 2020 because we are having at least 3 different times we're going to meet and talk about this and discuss these YouTube apologetics ideas already planned in 2020. February, all right, November, and April. So it's on. Okay, so anyways. Oh, man. Guys. Oh, man. Yeah, okay, so back to what we were talking about over here. I just wanted to say that real quick. All right, so in Mark chapter 9, we see this kind of text, right? These exorcist texts in which an exorcism happens, meaning the casting out or expelling of a demon, right? And so these are doubted by a lot of skeptical New Testament scholars, as I mentioned, Rudolph Bultmann and the project to demythologize the New Testament, and people who say Jesus is just merely acquiescing or obliging people around him. He didn't actually believe in these things, but he's sort of condescending, accommodating them. That's certainly what it's referred to as. So, all right, let me real quick. Well memed. I'm not going to read your comment out loud. It seems a little personal, but I do appreciate the super chat. But to the pastoral types, those who know how to have compassion and love, please talk to Well Memed and work with that YouTube handle right there that just gave the super chat. Like I said, I'm not going to read it on the air, but I appreciate the super chat. And hopefully some people can reach out to you right now. I got to rock this out, but hopefully we'll see what's up. All right. Now here we go. We are now rolling and looking here. So I recommend, if you want to see a work that defends the historicity of these class of texts, this is not what I'm doing today. Graham 12tree has a great book called Jesus the Miracle Worker. Graham 12tree, Jesus the Miracle Worker is the title of the book. Specifically on pages 282 to 292, he gets into it. But one quick thing I want to say in regards, right, to the historicity of these class of texts is something that we see in the Talmud. Now, yes, it's true. The Talmud's final compilation was centuries after Jesus had left the earth. That's true. But it doesn't mean there's no reflection of earlier attitudes that are in there. The problem is we don't know exactly. It's a whole kind of mess. But within that, there's a tradition within the Jewish material, specifically the Talmud, more specifically Babylonian tract Sanhedrin 43a, which talks about Jesus. Okay, this is not the Torah. I'm not talking about the Tanakh. I'm talking about this kind of commentary on it, right? These are extra biblical Jewish sources. They call Jesus a sorcerer in those sources. Now that's interesting because what kind of things, when Jesus performed miracles, did the Jewish leaders who did not accept him say during his very day? You perform this stuff by Satan's power. Basically, sorcery is what you're engaging in. It's interesting that ends up actually in the Babylonian Talmud, specifically Sanhedrin 43a, where Jesus is referred to as, quote, a sorcerer. This demonstrates by the very nature of the criticism, the historicity of it, because why would you say he's a sorcerer unless you were trying to disclose or understand the source of his power? The Gospels say it's from up there. The Babylonian Talmud and the Jews of Jesus' day who didn't accept him said it's from down there, in a manner of speaking. So, moving on with that, we see this exorcism as the most frequent kind of healing in Mark, right? And there's sort of a general form. 1 is the confrontation. 2 is the demon speaks. 3 is Jesus speaks. 4 is the demon begs. Send me into the pigs, that kind of thing. 5 is the cure. Oftentimes it's sort of a violent type of thing in regards to that. And with that as the background, now we go to Mark chapter 9, verse 14. All right. Hey! All right, I'm bringing it up. Verse 14 reads, And when they came to the disciples, they saw a great crowd around them and scribes arguing with them. Now, if you look at this, what's happened is Jesus has just come down from the mountaintop, all right? If you look, I'll just actually show you. What is it? It's the transfiguration, see? Now, the Bible doesn't actually specifically say where or what the mountain was. However, I'm okay with holding to early tradition, which says it was Mount Tabor, which is in Galilee, southwest of Lake Galilee. I don't see any reason to disbelieve that, although that cannot be 100% really verified. Now, that's just tradition. Either way, we see the synoptics include the transfiguration, and some commentators see an analogy between coming down off the mountaintop with Jesus after sort of shining and glowing, you know what I'm saying, and Exodus 32, when Moses comes down from the mountain. Moses returns from the mountain to find what? Great disobedience. Jesus returns from down off the mountain, in a manner of speaking, to find what? Great disbelief. And furthermore, there's kind of seen sometimes a parallel between the teachers of the law. Well, let me, and their rebellion and the Israelite rebellion of the day versus Moses. Meaning the teachers of law aren't expressing just disbelief. It's sort of rebellion really against God because they're opposing Jesus, right? And so there's a further kind of similarity perhaps there with Exodus 32. The disbelief shows up there in the powerless disciples, who we're going to see later, and also to an extent the Father. Now we're gonna get into all this. So you can see I've done a lot of studying of this text for you guys, and what I'm doing right now is I want you guys to make sure that you see this and we can learn from it, right? And we go deep on these Bible studies. I know that these kind of videos don't go viral, but I think it's very important because the foundation of your theology and therefore your apologetics is the scripture. So that's why we do Bible studies on this channel, right? And it is what it is. And so I hope you learn, and let's do this together. Now, verse 15. You see, it says, and immediately all the crowd, when they saw him, were greatly amazed and ran up to him and greeted him. Amazed there in the Greek means literally to marvel. To marvel. Sometimes it can be translated as greatly amazed. It's used also in Mark 14:33, 34, and Mark 16:5-6, when it showed this great astonishment in relationship to Jesus's kind of final days and even resurrection, which is very interesting. Here probably had to do with the unexpected arrival of Jesus. Some people say, well, maybe he was still shining or glowing. The problem is the Bible doesn't directly say, so we don't know that, but it just says the crowd was like, it's like the timing of his arrival was perfect. Now, you see the wonder of the crowd might be able to be contrasted with the disciples and their slow kind of recognition in this account. Like usual, they're blockheads, like us. And so we see that, and we continue on in verse 16. Oh, real quick, it says they greeted him. I want you to see this over here. See where it says they greeted him? This is interesting. This is what Jews of the day would do, and it's like this word salute, and it just means to bid or welcome, wish well. And the Israelites of Jesus' day, when meeting and when parting as well, they would generally use a formula which was peace unto thee. That's in the KJV, or you could say peace to you. Basically, shalom, right? And so it seems like the crowd here, when they see Jesus, actually gives him this respectful salutation of shalom, which is good. You know what I mean? So it's good. Hey, Sean Gregory, thank you. I believe you became a Patreon today. Sean, is that right? Yeah, bro. Appreciate that, man. Patreon.com/vocab. Hey, Mr. Phil Fox, don't be giving David Wood credit, man, when I'm rocking this. Just kidding. Just kidding, man. Okay. So continue on here right now. And we're in Mark 9:16. It says, and he asked them, what are you arguing about with them? So it looks like the disciples are arguing with somebody in the crowd. Now, who is it? It's the scribes. We can see verse 14, right? So there's division going on. Remember, the teachers of the law, they oppose Jesus, generally speaking, and they deny his validity. You can see that in Mark chapter 2, Mark chapter 3, Mark chapter 7. This conflict with Jesus is a common theme in the book of Mark. Now we continue on to Mark 9:17, and someone from the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he has a spirit that makes him mute." I don't know if that's what they're arguing about, text doesn't say, or the man's interrupting. Either way, this is going to be where now the action is centered on. So it's like, imagine there's this crowd and someone emerges and they say to him, master or teacher, is the word could be translated either way. And then they say, my son. So he's identifying what he believes is the cause, which is a spirit, which is later going to be identified as an unclean spirit in the text. And he's saying, hey, this spirit makes him mute, so not be able to speak. The word there, alalon, means like dumb. It means he who does not talk. That's literally what it means. It emphasizes sort of no sound. You know what I mean? That's what the idea is there. And look what it says here. We're going to see later on that well, let me see, are we on verse 18? Yeah, hold on, let me go up here a little bit. And whenever it seizes him, it throws him down, and he foams and grinds his teeth and becomes rigid. So I asked your disciples to cast it out, and they were not able. All right, so he's already trying to do something. That might be the center of the argument, perhaps. And let's get into some of the actual Greek words here so we can understand this a little bit better. I'm going to recircle on back some of these because I want us to really be able to understand this well. Okay, this word to lay hold of, you see there in the, I'm going to put seize, right? That word is like to lay hold of, almost as if to take possession, to seize upon. That's the way that the Greek word is. So it's sort of a picture of someone seizing something and then pulling it down. And in Greek, the writers would use this word a lot of times when they would speak about fits, right? So that's the word that he's saying, whenever it seizes him. So the spirit takes ownership of him, kind of pulls him down. That's what the Father's saying here in verse 18. He's describing the situation to Jesus, right? And then it says in the KJV, it'll say it teareth him. And the word there means that he ends up distorting or convulsing. And so he's saying that this demon causes convulsions in his son. All right? See, it throws him down. See that right there? Now, that actual word, that actual verb right there, let me see here. That verb right there, we're not 100% certain what it means, but it seems most do understand it to mean throw down or tear apart. And so we see that there. So this is very kind of violent picture, right? You guys see that? And then in the KJV, you'll see gnashes with his teeth. Here you see grinds his teeth. I mean, hey, I do that at night when I sleep. Apparently, I got to have a retainer. And they're telling me I need to get braces. Hey, Mr. Phil Fox, you know I'm just teasing you, bro. Mr. Phil Fox, I'm pretty sure you know I'm just teasing, right? I tease on this channel. I'm not nearly as mean as Sam or David, but I do play around a bit, you know what I mean? So I'm totally 100% just teasing. I'm sure you know that. But let me say, thank you for the super chat, 100%. I really mean it. You're a great supporter of this channel. You make it happen. You give me confidence that some of the big dreams and goals and visions we have for 2020 can be achieved because there's people who are down for the cause. And, the Lord's in charge, but he uses his people. And I praise God for the partnership with the gospel that you guys have, because I think you guys recognize the importance of Christians representing on YouTube. You know what I mean? They can't do what we're doing right now in China. This can't be done. This video can't even be shown in China unless they do some tricky stuff. You know what I mean? Shout out to Inky Spectre, by the way. Shout out to Nate, if I haven't already said your name, my bro. So here we are looking. You're getting kind of this violent picture. Grinds his teeth. The verb there is trizo, which means to squeak or utter a shrill cry. But when it's used in connection with the teeth, that means to grind or to gnash the teeth. And then we also see in the KJV, it'll say pineth away. And we see foams. So I mean, look at this stuff. Look at this stuff. Let's see. Yeah, there's that. Let me make sure I got the right one. Yeah. Pineth away here in the ESV is becomes rigid. It literally means to dry up or to become stiff, to wither. In relationship to members of the body, it means to kind of waste away. It almost speaks of the like right before you're dying, when you have that final stage of like motionless stupor. And I hope you guys could tell I'm drawing from lexicon, so I grabbed some lexical resources here so we can understand it better. You know what I mean? And so what I'm doing is I'm bringing these. Nay, I knew you were going to say that, bro. I knew you were going to say that, man. What's up, Luke? What's up, Matt Long? What's up, the Redneck? What's up, All Nations Under God? Shout out to y'all. I knew he was going to say that, man. It ain't even like that, bro. But maybe it is. Who knows? Who knows what happens in the subconscious, right? Moab. Then we see they could not. They were not able. Who's that? That's the disciples. They lacked the ability to take care of this problem. The word is to have power to exert or willed power, such as you would need for extraordinary deeds, which is, of course, what's about to happen. Now, some of this, you notice, sounds like epilepsy. That's why he's sometimes called the epileptic boy. Now, this gets into a whole thing, which I'm going to comment on more later. But I want you to notice something. It says he has a spirit that makes him mute. So it's kind of like, it's interesting. Like, does a spirit make a problem the boy already has worse? You see what I'm saying? Or does it bring on all of these conditions? It doesn't have to. I want to make sure we kind of look at this. I'm going to get more into this later. But we don't want to make the dangerous mistake to say that all diseases or all epilepsy, for example, is called by demonic activity. That'd be a big no-no. And the Bible itself doesn't do that. I'm going to prove it later on. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate that. But at the same time, we see something going on here where it's not just a mere, kind of chronic nervous disorder. The Father recognizes that it goes beyond that. So he can't speak, and the Father seems to think he should be able to, or maybe he does speak other times when he's not being demonized. He says seizes him, so it's almost like this violent action the Father recognizes, throws him down. So this is unnatural activity for anyone to do, right? I mean, you see some 3-year-olds do this kind of stuff in the store, throwing fits, but he's saying this is what I see happening when this demonic presence is attaching itself to my son. Foaming at the mouth, grinding teeth. You see, it's almost animalistic in the description. And by the way, that's a major, major thing that demon possession seems to have a goal to, which is, besides hindering the gospel and hindering God's work, it seems to be a goal to destroy the imago Dei in people. So to make them be a certain way that they're not. Almost animalistic, to destroy the imago Dei. You know what I'm saying? And I see we have some people, so I know that there's some people probably most certainly watching this who have epilepsy. I want to reiterate this account, and I am never ever saying epilepsy is a result of demonic activity. What is happening here is one of two things. The boy has epilepsy, and this demonic presence makes these things worse to the point where the Father recognizes an unnatural state of affairs beyond the mere epilepsy, or all the conditions are brought on by demonic activity in this case. But that doesn't mean all are. And I'm going to show you that, like I said, in a little bit later here. But I want to continue on here, okay? So they don't have power to cast out this demon. And by the way, epilepsy and demon possession, they could coincide, right? And that's part of what I'm saying. Maybe this is the time where I'll read a little bit of this. I'm going to switch over real quick here. I got a commentary by William Lane that I really like. And I want to read one little part of what he said about the epilepsy aspect to it. It's on page 331. This is a large commentary, really good commentary in the Gospel of Mark. And it says this. The description of the destructive energy released at unexpected intervals by the demonic spirit indicates the seriousness of the boy's condition. Violent convulsions, foaming at the mouth, involuntary gnashing of the teeth, rigidness, followed by utter exhaustion, resemble the symptoms of the major form of epilepsy. Now notice, it could just be resembling them. That's why he's called the epileptic boy, because what he does appears epileptic. You guys understand what I'm saying? The reference to a dumb and deaf spirit implies that the child's situation was aggravated by an inability to speak or hear. What was involved, however, was not simply a chronic nervous disorder, but demonic possession. The violence of the seizures and the reference to repeated attempts to destroy the youth by hurling him into a fire or water, we're going to see that in a second here, indicate that the purpose of demonic possession is to distort and destroy the image of God and man. It's a good point. I mentioned it. That this destruction should be heaped upon a child only serves to indicate how radical the issue is between demonic power and Jesus, the bestower of life. So I thought that was helpful, and so that's why I read it. Now, flipping back over to Logos. All right, now, let's see what's said here in verse 19. So we're going to find something very insightful that Jesus says. And he answered them, O faithless generation, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him to me. Ho-ho! Huh! Faithless generation. This is also used in 8:12 and 8:38 of Mark, and generally refers to those who deny Jesus. And it's interesting, this term generation. I do think when you tie this in with prophecies, okay, about the fall of Jerusalem, I do think that you have a situation where Jesus is even saying this faithless generation, because when you put it together, is going to be destroyed. And in fact, I got some information on that. Some of this you've heard before, but remember, this is around 30, or so, or in the early 30s there. Generations is generally considered 40 years. The destruction of Jerusalem happens in 70 AD. Now, the Christian church fled to Pella in Transjordan. Okay, you can see that Mark 13:14, sort of a reference to that sort of in advance. And they stayed, but at that point in 70 AD, not many of the original hearers of Jesus would be left alive. But the ones who were until they died, a lot of them, their bodies fell in the wilderness, just like their unbelieving forefathers, Hebrews 3:17. So the Roman legionaries ended up being terrible agents of the wrath of God on the stubborn and rebellious generation that Jesus also talked about in Mark 13:14-20. And the civilian casualties were very heavy because of this. So there's a lot bound up in here when Jesus even says this, and you can look to that theme in other places. But here he is. He says, faithless generation. All right? And you can see here that Jesus kind of, there's almost like exhaustion here. You know what I mean? And if you look where it says, how long am I to be with you? How long am I to bear with you? If you look at that, there's a preposition there that means facing. It implies fellowship. He's like basically saying, how long do I have to be in this kind of relationship with you? Here's what's so interesting. Listen to this closely. Listen to this carefully, everybody. Jesus Christ is utilizing the same exact language Yahweh himself uses in relationship to Israel. Yahweh speaks about faithless Israel, and Jesus is speaking about faithless Israel in the same way. The proof for Jesus' divinity is all throughout the Bible. It's not just one place. It's sometimes the fact of who does he think he is to speak as if he's Yahweh, because guess what? That is literally exactly what he does. Let me just show you this. For he said, surely they are my people, children who will not deal falsely, and he became their Savior. In all their affliction he was afflicted, and the angel of his presence saved them. In his love and in his pity he redeemed them. He lifted them up and carried them all the days of old. But they rebelled and grieved his Holy Spirit. Therefore he turned to be their enemy, and himself fought against them. Then he remembered. So it's like that kind of idea. It's like that same kind of idea there, right? And let me show you something else that's even kind of more so. Psalm 95, check this out. Psalm 95, Verse 10. For 40 years I loathed that generation, and said, they are a people who go astray in their heart, for they have not known my ways. Therefore I swore in my wrath, they shall not enter my rest. Do you see that? Jesus is talking like Yahweh. See, God, Yahweh, had patient endurance with the faithless Israelites, this generation of the wandering in the days of old, but they finally came under God's judgment. Jesus is saying similar, just like that, that's going to happen to you. He says that in other places. He doesn't say all that there. I'm just kind of focusing on that fact of faithless generation, right? 35 years after the crucifixion of Jesus comes the fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD. I think that is very important for us to recognize, I think that's very important for us to recognize. Now back here to Mark chapter 9. Here we are in verse 20, continue on our study, and we're getting to some real action right here in Mark chapter 9. So look what it says here. And they brought the boy to him, and when the spirit saw him, immediately it convulsed the boy, and he fell on the ground and rolled about, foaming at the mouth. So notice, it has to do when the spirit recognizes who Jesus is. When the spirit saw him. Now, you got a mute spirit, so it's not gonna talk. It makes the boy dumb. So it's not possessing his vocal cords to speak. It seems to be possessing his vocal cords to not speak. But there's still a reaction. It's immediately as the spirit sees Jesus. There's a recognition. Interesting that a lot of times the demons recognize who Jesus was quicker than people, right? But it's a violent reaction. It's one of rebellion. It's really one of fear. And when the spirit saw him. So notice they brought the boy to him, but it says when the spirit saw him. So it's interesting because there is an interplay between the boy and the spirit. When someone is basically being demonized, when someone's being demonized, there's this close interplay between the person and the spirit, the unclean spirit. However, the unclean spirit still has its own distinct personality. For example, it can reason, these unclean spirits. Remember, hey, don't cast us over here till our time is yet, trying to make a compelling argument, and Jesus actually has mercy on them. I know who you are, Holy One, all this kind of stuff. So there's some distinction, but there's still some interplay. It's very interesting, isn't it? They brought the boy to him, and when the spirit saw him. It doesn't say, and when the boy saw him. Do you guys notice that? This is fascinating if you really look closely. But look at the unclean spirit's reaction. Immediately, and that's Mark's favorite word in the gospel, by the way, it convulsed the boy, just like the father said. And he fell on the ground, just like the father said, and rolled about. So I like this father because he's in tune with this boy. He describes this boy's condition exactly as it portrays. I like this father because he wanted to take care of his son, and he's involved with this child's relationship because he's able to exactly describe the problem. You see that? I like this father a lot. He fell on the ground and rolled about, foaming at the mouth, just like said. Now notice again, this is like animalistic behavior, which is what a lot of times people who are being demonized do. And so you can see by this is something beyond mere epilepsy. Now, the Bible never actually says, unless I'm missing something, the boy had epilepsy. It's just the signs match aspects of it. But you can see this goes far beyond an epileptic fit. Are you guys seeing that? I hope we're seeing that, right? Now, let's continue on here. You're going to see it even more when we get to verse 21. But let me just show you where it says this word. It's son parasa. It means to convulse completely. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes you'll see it in the KJV, the spirit tear him. Then afterwards, when it says to be rolled, it's like the idea of wallowed. So it's like he's being rolled back and forth on the ground by this this convulsion. So what do you see here? You see a lack of control over his own motor responses, the boy's. That's why we call it demon possession, because he's not even fully in control of his own motor responses here. And it is true that this kind of behavior and activity can be paralleled throughout history and various anthropological studies. Now, I know that we're in a modern era and people don't agree with that, but we see historical accounts of this. There's even anthropological studies where we see some stuff like this. And some writers of these anthropological studies have even note a connection between what appears to be epileptic behavior and demonized activity. But But, and here's where I said I was going to prove this. It was important to say. The Bible distinguishes between sicknesses and the demon possession. Okay? They are not exactly the same. And I want to make sure this is clear. Matthew 4:24. So his fame spread throughout all Syria, and they brought him all the sick, those afflicted with various diseases and pains, those oppressed by demons, those having seizures and paralytics, and he healed them. Notice this. These are different classes of ailments people have got. Here's the sick. Here's with the diseases, because there's a difference between sick and disease. Pains, there's a difference between this. Those oppressed by demons, and that's why we sometimes talk about demon oppression versus demon possession. The Bible itself never uses the word demonize, although that's a technical term that's been developed. It does use oppressed by demons here, or to have a demon. It never actually says demon possessed, to my knowledge, but it'll say to have a demon, to have an unclean spirit. Those having seizures and paralytics, and he healed them. Notice, do you guys see? So we do not believe all sickness is part of some kind of demonic. In fact, a lot of things, demonic behavior, I didn't finish my sentence. A lot of times in the Bible, some diseases or sicknesses or whatever are never attached with any kind of demonic activity at all. For example, do you notice leprosy? Leprosy is never attached to any kind of demonic activity in the Bible, in the New Testament. What I mean by that is that you never see, I've got a spirit that's making me a leper. And you never see that. I'm not saying it couldn't happen. I'm just saying that's one example. And there's a lot of other ones you see where that doesn't have anything to do with it. Someone dies, Lazarus is sick. There's lots of places. And so the prosperity gospel doesn't work. And those trying to accuse us of thinking all sickness comes from demons making people sick, that doesn't work either. I just want to draw that out. But guess what? Matthew 4:24 is not the only place. I'm just going to give you a quick list. Matthew 8:16, Matthew 10:1, Matthew 10:8, Mark 1:32 through 34, Mark 5:15 through 19, Mark 6:13, Luke 4:40 through 41, Luke 9:1, Luke 12:21. Okay? I want to bring that out. Now, however, with all that being said, demonic activity can sometimes bring attendant physical ailments, such as Matthew 12:22, Matthew 17:14 through 18, Luke 7:21, or in this case, and what appears in this case in Mark chapter 9, is that the spirit gained access to the same centers in the brain where seizures could also be induced by other means. And if you notice, this boy, what he does is he's self-destructive. Demoniacs usually are self-destructive. And in fact, this characteristic is another thing that we see in cases of what people understand to be spirit possession across diverse cultures. A great scholar who has written on this is a man named Craig Keener. He's done some great work on miracles and on this as well. If you want the short version of his work, because he tends to write super long books, I really encourage you to get this. It's called the IVP Bible Background Commentary, New Testament. And it gives a lot of the cultural background. If you want an even simpler version, there's a cultural commentary Bible that's been put out. I think Keener's like one of the main editors, along with some other guys, I forget who. And it has some good stuff. Now, I don't always agree with everything Keener says, just like anybody. I just always got to make these qualifications. Hey, what's up? K-Dub just dropped a new video, and he's been busy, so K-Dub, drop your link. Guys, subscribe to K-Dub. Just like I don't agree with everything K-Dub says, but I still want you to check out his work he does, and he always makes you think, and he did a great job in the debate, because I was rewatching it, that he had with Sakari a long time ago, back in the day with Brother Jay. It's 2 years ago, but anyways, blah, 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 blah. All right, now with all that being said, okay, we go to Mark 9:21, and what do we see? Oops, I didn't have I need to go back, my bad. I'm going to go back to our actual text here, Mark 9:21, okay. And Jesus asked his father. Notice how Jesus is calm. This boy this thing happens in front of him, and he turns to the father. Jesus asks his father, "How long has this been happening to him?" This is why he's the good doctor. This whole situation is very medical in that way, in a strange way. The way it's like, kind of, it's like, he describes his symptoms. How long has this been happening? How long has it been happening to him? Notice it's being acted upon him. The way it's translated, I think, accurately portrays the Greek. How long has this been happening to him? Saying it's not how long has he been doing this. Notice that. And he said, from childhood. Now he's a boy, so it's interesting. From childhood, it just means a long time. This is fascinating. How exactly could that be? I don't have all the answers on that, but I know that here's what's going on. And it's interesting because a lot of times in the Old Testament, if you got into this kind of stuff, you could be killed, death penalty, because the idea is you're chasing after foreign gods. It's different. The New Covenant presents people who are being demonized more as like victims of something, and they're not to be killed; they're to be delivered. It's just interesting there. You know what I'm saying? All right, so continue on looking at this. Mark uses this word here, balo. It's like to throw. And basically, you could tell because it's to throw. The Father's answer there and here indicates that he doesn't think these frequent mishaps are actually mishaps, or he knows they're not accidental. You see what I'm saying? And look at Mark 9:22. Oh, because I'm talking. That's what I was talking about. By the way, I'm talking about Mark 9:22 with what I just said, but based on his answer. So let me actually go there. And it is often cast him. That's the word I was referring to. I jumped a little bit ahead. I was still in 21, but I'm talking about Mark 9:22. That word there. All right. And it has often cast him into the fire and water. Now again, that's not normal. It's trying to kill him. Now see this water. Notice it's a plural form of water that Mark uses here. So it suggests pools or streams. So a lot of water is the idea. So trying to drown him. Fire trying to burn him. So it looks like the fathers had to save his son a lot of times, right? So fathers had to do, right? They got to save their sons from this kind of stuff or whatever it is, all right? Has often cast him into the fire and into water to destroy him. So the father seems to know this unclean spirit, wicked intent. So I don't know what kind of steps he's taken, but this looks like he's at a point of desperation. Because look what he says here. But if you can do anything. Now that's interesting. He's bringing him to Jesus for a reason. But yet he uses this word. The noun form of it is dunamos, which means power. And it means power in the sense of that which overcomes resistance. Now what happened? It looks like his faith has been shaken. Why? Because remember, the disciples... I forgot. I've been looking at the wrong camera the whole time because I got my other camera. Yeah, I've been looking over here. That camera's not on. Oh, man, guys, I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys noticed. This camera. I got to remember. You guys remember. Help me remember. Right here. Man. I've still got to look away sometimes to read over here, but I'm trying to do better. I'm professional. All right, well, it seems like the inability of the disciples to cast out this demon, and it's kind of like shaking up his faith. Because look what he says here: "If you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." So, you want a God who, first of all, has the power to act, don't you? Number one. Number two, you also want a God who has compassion on you and can help. See, because if you have a God who has compassion but can't do anything, by the way, first of all, he's not really a God, then you're out of luck. If you have a God who, could do it but doesn't have compassion, then you're out of luck. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, when I say God, because that's who Jesus is. And this is, sometimes our prayers are like this, aren't they? God, if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us. I like the raw honesty in this Father. I really dig this Father a lot. You know what I'm saying? I like his vibe. I like his honesty, because he's going to become my hero here in a second, even more so. All right, you'll see. Verse 23. Let's scroll up here. And Jesus said to him, "If you can, all things are possible for one who believes." I like this. Jesus repeats back, what he says. If you can, if I can, he's like quoting the guy, That's great. I almost sense like humor, like Jesus is in control in the situation, He's just like so chill. He can even say this right now. If you can. Whoa! Hold on. Let me stop right here. I didn't see your comment. Let me share this. I saw earlier, Mr. Phil Fox, that you said you're full-blooded Native American. You're trying to brush up on your apologetics to defend the gospel in Indian country. I saw that comment. But I never knew this about you before, or this situation. Look what the brother says here. By the way, Mr. Phil Fox is one of the fantastic supporters of this channel. We really do have some wonderful people, and I'm not just saying that. But I need to show you guys this comment. This is something else right here. Oh, man. I know this is going to turn into a whole thing with the Hebrew Israelites. They're going to be all happy about this. That's all right. We just like to keep it real here. Mr. Phil Fox says this. Can you guys read that now? The BHI, the Black Hebrew Israelites, have been able to get into the reservation like no Christian missionary could. And that is scary to me. That is crazy. I got to hear more about this. So you're from North Dakota, Mandan, Hidatsa, Arikara Nation. Whoa. I mean, I know about some inroads, you know what I mean? And I know the challenges of is Christianity the white man's religion clearly relates, obviously, to these kinds of issues. I know that. I've seen some of that, you know what I mean? But I didn't know it was like what you're saying here, especially in your context. So guys, pray for that brother, pray for those tribes, and it shows that this is important work going on. I mean, are you guys reading this? Dude ain't lying. I mean, what's he got to, you know? Yeah. Back in the day, my homie talked about something called the Coyote Gospel, and it was a contextualized gospel for Native American brothers and sisters. We're going to keep that in prayer. Keep on going on, though. We got to keep on going on here. All things are possible for one who believes. Now, prosperity gospel preachers like to use this verse and say, I'm just reading what it says. It says all things are possible for one who believes. Hey, all things are possible. Don't you believe? And they misuse this. But let's look at the context here. Is Jesus talking about gaining material wealth? Jesus is not talking about acquiring possessions here. He is certainly not. He is talking about the necessity of faith, which makes the deliverance possible. Now, this is interesting because if you notice, it doesn't seem like there's faith on the boy's part. It's almost like the father is an intercessory faith guy. It's almost like imagine yourself praying for someone who has no faith, but you've got the faith, but even you need help with the faith. And Jesus here is challenging the man's disbelief that's creeping in. He's clearly got some, but I think the disciples failing kind of shook him up a little bit, right? So look, all things are possible for one who believes. Very contextual. Very contextual. I hope people understand what's going on here. Now, look at the result. This is amazing. And I like how, again, I like this father. Mark uses the word immediately, as in believe right now. And look what the father does. Immediately the father of the child. This is like the best dad ever. I like this guy. Immediately the father of the child cried out. See, man, when I read stuff like this, even though it's these simple words in the Bible, it gets me in my heart. You know, it gets me right here because I think about a dad like this and I'm like, am I a dad like that? And it makes you feel challenged. You know, you don't want to, sit around and wallow and just feel like a failure. But you just feel very challenged as a father to be like a guy like this. God help us all, parents in the audience, future parents. Help us to be fathers who cry out for our children like this guy. And look what he says. This is the beautiful honesty that we all need to have before the Lord, because guess what? He already knows. Look what he says. I believe, help my unbelief. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I believe, help my unbelief. We don't just need... Hey, what's up, Mike Jr.? How you doing? Andrew Graham, by the way. Shout out to Judah the Lion. How y'all doing? We don't just need God's help and healing. our problem at the time. Ladies and gentlemen, we need God's assistance in even giving us the faith to properly believe him for the miracles in the first place. I believe, help my unbelief. That's a beautiful, honest statement. Hey, what's up, Joe Roman? How you doing, bro? Good to see you. I believe, pisteo. Now, I do like what John Calvin said about this. He said this. He declares that he believes and yet acknowledges himself to have unbelief. These two statements may appear to contradict each other, but there is none of us that does not experience both of them in himself. You know, sometimes I read quotes from Calvin because when I talk about being reformed, or it's called Calvinism, we don't worship John Calvin. It doesn't go that way. It's just a historical name attached to a system that, by God's grace, is supposed to be biblical. It's just these things have names. We don't choose them. It just we don't choose the names. And just like Calvinism himself. I'm just messing around. But I like to sometimes quote him because I think people don't recognize how pastoral Calvin was. He was a pastor, first and foremost. He wasn't alone in an ivory tower, a mere scholastic guy during the days of the second wave of reformers. He was with the people. Yeah, he was elite as far as his intellect went and, you know, what he was able to do and all that. But he was with the people. He had a pastoral sensibility. And I think that's important. That's beautiful. These two statements may appear to contradict each other, but there is none of us that does not experience both of them in himself. And we just need to admit that. We need help, don't we? We need help. Now look here. Jesus can help, though, can he? Mark 9:25. And when he saw Jesus, I'm sorry. And when Jesus saw, so Jesus is paying attention to his surroundings. He's paying attention to what's going on, right? When Jesus saw that a crowd came running together. So it seems like Jesus is trying to do this before the crowd's all up in their business. That's what it appears. You know what I mean? Because this looks like a tender moment. Now, there's already a crowd there, but maybe they drew to the side. Or maybe there's a bigger crowd coming because they're running. But either way, he's like, oh, yo. Let's do this. Because in Mark, they have something called the Messianic secret. Mark plays upon the idea that Jesus doesn't really want people to know him as the Messiah. You know? Don't tell. He rebuked the unclean spirit. Boom. Not a long conversation with the devil. Now, you got these modern-day exorcists that have these long, drawn-out dialogues, like they're staying up late night with their teenage girlfriend or something, about, oh, how long you been in the demon business? Okay. What's your name? Okay. Well, oh, how many generations do you go back? Okay. And how do you feel right now? Okay. What's some of your favorite objects that you know, all this kind of stuff, right? I mean, it gets super crazy. Tell me about your powers and abilities. Okay, almost like it's a job application for the demon. I don't know if you've seen some of these silly modern exorcists. It's ridiculous, some of the stuff they do. Guys like Bob Larson, you know what I mean, who I used to listen to back in the day before he went off. It's silly. It's a joke. Jesus ain't doing that. He doesn't need to have a long, drawn-out conversation with a demon. An unclean spirit doesn't actually say the word demon in this text, but it's clear what it is. Unclean spirit. We use the word of the text, right? Who does he have a conversation with? The Father. He doesn't have a conversation with the boy because he can't yet. He's talking, right, to the Father. But yet, when it's time to act, it's time to act. He rebuked the unclean spirit. Unclean. A cathartos. Pneuma. Spirit's pneuma. Cathartos is unclean. In the Greek, it literally reads, if you read the word order, the syntax, which is not as important in Greek as it is in English, but if you read in order in Greek, the syntax actually says, the spirit, the unclean. The spirit, the unclean. Mark 9:25, the spirit, the unclean. Mark 9:25, look at the command here, how he rebukes it though, all right? Oh, hold on, let me go down here. Saying to it, you mute and deaf spirit. I like how, he's not trying to get his name. The only time he gets a name is in the case of Legion. You know what I'm saying? It's the only time, right? You mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. Ha! The power and authority of Jesus. This is a guy we need in our life. This is a guy worthy of our worship. This is the guy. You mutant deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again. He's not coming back. This ain't no, demon who goes getting demons stronger than himself and then comes back in. Jesus is saying, you're never coming back here again. And don't come back here, no more, no more, no more, no more. All right. We won't see you around these parts here. Come out of it and never enter him again. That demon has to listen because he's got all authority. You mutant deaf spirit. Man, Jesus is the man. He is the man. He is the man. Seriously. Sakari Uncovered. I think you're joking. You said, how dare you knock Bob Larson? Hey, I don't know if you know, he set up headquarters in the Phoenix area, and there's some stories about that dude. That's all I'll just say. Oh my goodness. Sakari Uncovered, though, you got an interesting name, but you need to get an avatar. Everyone has avatar, and it brings personality in here. You go ahead and get yourself an avatar, man, and that would be funny to see Bob Larson at a BHI camp. Also, Linda Wallingford, why don't you get yourself an avatar picture? Josh, why don't you get yourself an avatar picture, too? We need some love up in here. June Villegas, get yourself an avatar. Get a profile picture, people. We need love up in here, all right? I will ask you kindly if you will please not kick me out of this check or block me. Zechariah Yudah Israel, as long as you don't threaten anybody, as long as you don't curse out the women especially, we're especially protective of them, and as long as you don't be, this is mainly it, you know what I'm saying? Try not to be too racist, you know what I'm saying? Because we don't do that. We don't play those games. We don't kick people out just for the sake of disagreement. You can disagree all day. Ask Judah the Lion. Hey, Zechariah, ask Judah the Lion how we treat him. For real. I'm not joking. Judah the Lion, tell Zechariah how we treat you, bro. And that's real. Yeah. All right, so check this out. But I love this, man. I love Jesus, but you know what? It's not just that. I have so much respect for him. It's just when I read this and realize this is how he acted in this world, this is the kind of man I would like to be like. This is the guy we can emulate. This is no Muhammad who says if you walk down the street and are attracted to some lady, hurry up and go home and have sex with one of your wives, which you could have 4 of. Jesus is on a whole nother level, man. This is a man's man, but also a protector of the innocent. Hey, what's up, Richard James, a.k.a. DJ for the Castro? So anyways, look at this. And after crying out and convulsing him terribly, now isn't that interesting? All of a sudden, says something. After crying out and convulsing him terribly, it came out. So put up a little fight. It don't like it, but it's not even a competition. Jesus and the unclean spirit. It's not even a battle. You know what I mean? It's not even. And the boy was like a corpse. So notice the spirit is gone. This unclean spirit now is gone. But there's a result that almost makes it seem like the boy's dead. He's just there stiff. And so guess what? Most people in the crowd thought he was dead. Again, more doubt. Jesus is going to kill the boy in the process of the exorcism. I mean, that's not really what the Father was after. Jesus would have totally failed there, wouldn't he have? You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, the Father's like, this demon is trying to destroy my son, right? And here the crowd's like, hey, Jesus just killed this kid. You know what I mean? That would kind of be the opposite of what the Father was looking for. It's like going to the doctor and he's like, here, take this poison. But nah, why do they doubt? Why do they doubt Jesus? Don't doubt Jesus. The boy was like a corpse. So that most of them said. So that means probably some of them knew, nah, we're about to see a miracle. He's dead. But Jesus took him by the hand. Again, action. And this is what we all need in life. We need Jesus to take us by the hand when we're pretty much dead. Notice Mark is painting this picture so it sounds very resurrection-like. I don't know if you guys know that. Jesus took him by the hand. Didn't Jesus take you by the hand when it seemed like you were dead and lifted him up? Doesn't Jesus lift you up? I mean, I'm getting a little allegorical here, but he physically does it here. Wouldn't it be cool to be this boy in a weird way? Now, don't get me wrong here, but just imagine this boy's been tormented by this demon. And now all of a sudden, for the first time he's in his right mind, he's laying still and he wakes up. And he'd be like waking up from the worst dream ever, but it was real. And the first thing this boy senses is Jesus' hand on his and lifting him up. That's kind of cool. And he arose. Oh! Like I said, it's kind of like a resurrection. The way Mark does it, very masterfully. And when he had entered the house. So now, this is kind of like skipped. This is like the epilogue. So the thing is over. You know what I mean? It's all done. Actions stopped. All right? Now we're in Mark 9:28. And when he entered the house, his disciples asked him privately, "Why could we not cast it out? Why could we not cast it out?" And Jesus said to them, and he said to them, "This kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer." Huh. Now the thing is, I don't really remember Jesus praying in any kind of sense during this account. Do you? So what can he mean by that? Now we're going to go backwards and talk about the rest of this here in a second. This is the life of prayer. This is the way that Jesus lived his life, which is a life filled with total dependence and intercommunication and with the members of the triune Godhead. This is what Jesus himself did. Jesus saying, you got to be living like me, this kind. That's interesting, this kind. You know what that implies? There's different levels of demons with different levels of strength. There's different kinds of unclean spirits. Now, they're all unclean spirits. They're all demons. But they have different levels. Do you guys see that? This kind, saying this particular kind. So he knows the class of demon. He's saying you have to be in a life of total dependence of prayer. It's not something you can just do right there in the moment. And so they couldn't do it. Now, Jesus had given them the power to cast out demons, but they couldn't do it here. Now, I see a lot of you mentioning the and fasting part. I am going to deal with that in a second and make a lot of you upset at me. But before I do that, let me talk a little bit about something about the rabbis of Jesus' day and the exorcists of Jesus' day briefly. I want to briefly discuss them to give some kind of cultural background as we wind down here, and then I'm going to open up to Q&A depending on our time here that we've got, all right? So, someone saying they're rabbi was not uncommon during Jesus' day. There's teachers, right? It was uncommon, though, for the rabbi to expect their disciples to be like them all the way to the point of duplicating their miracles, because there were some rabbis during Jesus' day who were seen as miracle workers. And again, I'm drawing this from Keener's background studies. Check it out real quick. My man who's the Hebrew Israelite who just joined. It is true we don't just kick you out for disagreeing, but what you're doing right now is a little disrespectful. Let me break it down real quick why. Here we are going through a Bible study on Mark chapter 9. So we're not talking about Star Wars or Transformers or G.I. Joe, which sometimes I talk about those things because I'm a nerd. We're talking about the Word of God and very important things. All you are talking about right away, you get in here and start talking about physical Israel, who are the Jews of today. It literally has nothing to do with the discussion. Now, in your mind, it does, it appears, but you've got to go deeper than that. You've got to see the Word of God for what it is. You've got to be able to look at the Word of God without worrying about these specific things that have been drilled into you. And also, don't you want to learn? Don't you want to grow? Don't you want to be that kind of man who's exposed to the Word of God and yearns for it? Why are you talking about something else? This is a concern. Because what happens is, if you start debating people about something we're not even discussing. Now, sometimes we do discuss this, but we are literally just talking about the Bible, Mark chapter 9, and how Jesus is greater than demons, and he has power over the demonic realm. And here you are talking about who the physical Jews. Brother, please come back with us. Try to stay on target. Try to stay on task with us, because we do sometimes mute people who just keep on going way off the whole time. If you're one of those guys, it's not going to be such a fun ride after all, because we're not going to put up with someone who's constantly distracting us. Do you realize we're talking about the Word of God and you're talking about something else? You know what I'm saying? Let's just do this. Let's just do this. All right, so here we are. Much love, though. Much love. All due respect, 100%. So, if I saw you in the street, I give you a hug. You know, I give you a pound, give you a handshake, give you a nod of respect. You know, whatever you're cool with. It's all love. I'm just trying to be honest, keep it real. Hey, what's up, Basic? How you doing, man? Good to see you today. And what's up, Vessels of Mercy? How you doing? All right. So there were some rabbis during Jesus' day who were seen as miracle workers, because there were miracle workers of Jesus' day, all right? But those rabbis didn't expect, like I said before, their disciples to repeat their miracles, and never in the rabbi's name. But when you go to Mark 9:39, guess what you see? You see Jesus saying, use, my name, right? I mean, you see that that's what's going on, right? In my name. So this is different. Now, the exorcists of Jesus' day usually use these methods that focused on their own ability or power, really power to manipulate a lot of times, and they would try to subdue demons by a lot of times incantations invoking higher spirits. And they would actually do things like using smelly roots or pain compliance techniques. Now, I'd be curious to look deeper into this because I'm drawing from my sources of historians of the day. With the smelly roots, I'd be curious what specific kinds of roots do they use. You know what's crazy? Like in South Carolina and places in the South, there's still people today involved in what they call the root, and they work the root. And actually, basically, is a kind of form of like black magic voodoo. When I say black, I don't mean it color, I mean it in the sense of not white magic, but that's still messed up anyway, so whatever way you want to call it. But that type of thing, you know what I'm saying, going on, the root, which is ain't no good and involves actual roots as well. And check this out. We see here they would sometimes do this and pain compliance techniques. Now, I'd be curious. I think I have a sense of what pain compliance techniques are, but could someone in the live chat look that up? What does actually that mean? What is a pain compliance technique? I have a general idea, but I don't know 100% exactly what that would mean. Someone look that up, like pain compliance technique. Tell me what that is, all right? But that's what they would do during that day. Notice, though, Jesus is not like those exorcists. What does he do? He only uses verbal commands. Verbal commands. That shows his authority. Different than the miracle-working rabbis or exorcists of his day. And in fact, we have evidence that sometimes it appears Second Temple Judaism, a lot of those Jews during that era, had this thought that reciting the Shema, which is Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 6, Shema Israel, they like to sing it, the cantors and all that. They would think that reciting that as well as parts of Psalm 3 and 91, they thought they were a powerful agent against spirits. We can see this more in William Lane's commentary, which I mentioned earlier. But here, Jesus isn't doing any of that, but he does say this kind only comes out by prayer. Now, when we look at this, right? Boom, right there. This is very interesting. In proshuke, as in through a life pattern of prayer and faith, because we see Jesus regularly finding time early in the morning, late in the evening to meet with God privately in prayer. Mark 1:35, Mark 6:46, Mark 14:32 through 39, right? But here's the thing. What do we got? Okay, I see you guys' answers. Yeah, see, that's interesting. I see your guys' answers. Interesting. All right, so a lot of people won't want to go here and not agree, but we're going to have to talk about this a little bit. And, I just want to be honest with what I know and see. We're going to click on this right here. It's going to bring up a textual note. You see the textual note? Hold on, I got to move this right here so you can see it. Okay, now we're going to talk more about this here in a second. Click on this on Logos. which again you can get on a discount, everybody, if you use the code. What does it say? Some manuscripts add and fasting. Now, the way some people look at it is some manuscripts take away and fasting. But here's the thing. It is true that the majority of manuscripts have the words and fasting. Kai nestai, and fasting. But the support for the omission of fasting, which is what the ESV recognizes, are incredibly important representatives of Alexandrian, Western, and Caesarean types of manuscripts. Aleph, B, K, Geo1, Clement Alexander, a bunch, very important ones. So the representatives are very important of the ones that do not have and fasting. And the thing is, if you think about it, it can be explained. It appears that this early church's increasing stress on fasting resulted in scribal glosses in certain places in the manuscript tradition that add and fasting. Because the same thing happens in Matthew 17:21. I'm going to show you this real quick here. Now, actually, the case for this is actually a little bit stronger. It's a little bit stronger where it adds it. Let me see if it where it says it. It doesn't even have. Yep. There you go. Oh, I gotta do it again. Okay. So we're in Matthew 17:19-21 here, and you're gonna see the same thing. Watch this. I'm gonna show you this, you guys. All right, check this out. Guess what? Same thing. Some manuscripts insert a verse here, but this kind never comes out except by prayer and fasting. Literally, almost the same type of thing. It's inserted in some manuscripts in Matthew 17:21, although it's a little bit better case. But guess what? That's also not the only place. Acts. So we see this in multiple places where later manuscripts add something that's not there. Okay? It's not there in the earliest manuscripts, and it's there in later manuscripts. Here it doesn't even mention it. So we're gonna have to go over the KJV and see what the KJV says here at Acts 10:30 to show you the difference. I'm drawing a case of an early tradition that arose. All right. Yeah. And Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting until this hour. So see that in the KJV, but in the ESV, notice this. 4 days ago, about this hour, I was praying in my house at the 9th hour. Okay, so this is also added in Acts 10:30 in later manuscripts. Now this is a really weak one. You see the same exact thing happen in 1 Corinthians 7:5. So you will see differences with the KJV in here. Now, obviously, I'm for fasting. Okay, obviously. Okay, I hope you guys understand that. But yeah, the same thing here, 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 5. Now, these are really weak ones. I'm showing you the ESV. Now I'm going to show you the KJV, okay? All right, let's look here at the KJV, and you're going to see, again, it's added, this idea of and fasting. You didn't see it in the ESV. See, that ye may give yourselves to fasting and prayer. The screen's acting up. I'm sorry, I don't know why it's doing that. I can't fix that right now. I don't understand exactly why it's doing that, but you guys can still see it. See that fasting and prayer added again, but in the ESV it doesn't have it. Now, you've got to stop and think. I'm going to make 2 points why the more accurate tradition of the scribal of the manuscripts, the more accurate tradition is not to have and fasting here. The kai nestai does not belong in Matthew 17:21, Acts 10:30, 1 Corinthians 7:5, or in Mark 9:29. Number one, it makes sense. It's much easier to explain the fact of why we have and fasting being added than to imagine a Christian scribe taking it away. See what I'm saying? It makes sense. We can say later tradition developed. We had a situation where people add this because of the early stress. Maybe it ended up, first they would put and fasting maybe on the side notes and ended up in the main text. We don't know exactly how it happened. It'd be very difficult to explain. Very difficult to explain. How did it occur where someone is literally taking away and fasting? Now, I've heard a joke where people said maybe you had some fat monks, and they're like, I don't want to add this. But the thing is, it really is strictly a joke. They took away and fasting, is because it's the earliest, best manuscripts. It's the highest quality ones that have it. So this is not me saying we're not supposed to fast. This is me saying we need to say only what the Bible says where it says it. And if later scribes added and fasting, we need to recognize that because the earliest, best manuscripts do not have and fasting. And we see this show up in several places. I just listed the 4 where it's in later manuscripts and not in earlier. That shows a scribal tendency to add something. But fortunately, we have earlier, better manuscripts that show us it didn't say and fasting there. Now, lastly, and I really think this is like the nail in the coffin, why don't get mad at me about this and think that I'm talking about taking away something from the Word of God. I'm talking about keeping it for what it really said, because the omission is the original. Look at Mark chapter 2, the very same book. Watch this, everybody. Now John's disciples and the Pharisees were fasting, and people came and said to him, why do John's disciples and the disciples of the Pharisees fast, but your disciples do not fast? And Jesus said to them, can the wedding guests fast while the bridegroom is with them? As long as they have the bridegroom with them, they cannot fast. The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast in that day. No one sews a piece of unshrunk cloth on an old garment. If he does, it kind of changes, but it's the same idea. But here's what I want to focus on. Hey, your disciples don't fast. What's up with that? Jesus says, here's the answer, is in a question. Do you guys see this? Boom. Boom, 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 boom. Let me ask you, did the disciples have Jesus with them at the time of this? Mark chapter 9, 7 chapters later? Yes, they did. So here you have Jesus in Mark chapter 2 sanctioning the disciples not fasting when he's with them. So why then would he kind of hold them accountable or, chastise them or expect them, whichever way you want to look at it, to be fasting when he's already sanctioning not fasting when he's with them? So in Mark chapter 9, why would he say, hey, you guys should have been fasting for this one to get this demon out? Why would he expect that? That doesn't make any sense. He's already sanctioned non-fasting during the ministry with them. To me, this just sets it as clear and done. I understand if you disagree. I don't hold it against you. Don't think we all need to fast more, because guess what? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast in that day. So fasting is for now. It is for now. Mark 2:21. We should all fast more, especially us Americans. God knows, probably especially us Italians. I'm not even joking. Right now. But I don't want to cheat and have the Bible say something Jesus didn't say just because it ends up in a scribal tradition. Because we want to do good textual criticism and be honest with the text, look at the history of the manuscripts, and we see the older, better manuscripts do not have this. We see 4 places where it's added. You add that plus this text here in Mark chapter 2, verse 19, and I think it's a sealed case. If you disagree, your reasons be interesting, but I'm sorry I made some of you upset. I know some of you guys don't feel what I'm saying here. Now we're going to switch over to a few Q&As because that concludes our main part of our study. And then I'm going to try to jump a freestyle, even though we haven't earned one today. Oh, wait, we did earn one today. But I got some new beats, and I know I owe you guys some ones from other ones anyway. So let's look at some questions here real quick and see what you guys have to say. Billy Mandalay, but vocab was Jesus implying they haven't been praying. Well, remember, Jesus' life of prayer is exemplary. And so we see Jesus doing the things the disciples aren't doing. You know what I'm saying? He's constantly drawing away for prayer. They're not doing that. They're not constantly drawing away for prayer like Jesus is. Can you guys see the comments, by the way? Is that a good size of the comment? I've been working on making them larger. I had a couple people complain that they couldn't read them, and so I want to see if that's a good size. I can make it bigger if we need to. I'm checking the screen here to see if it is. I think Jesus is saying clear to them is that the lifestyle I have of total dependence on God with prayer, that's the lifestyle you guys need to have this level of power to be able to drive out these demons. I think that's the clear implication. So he is saying they haven't been praying the way they need to. You see what I'm saying? I don't know what else he would do with it. Okay, Johnny Torch. Well, I think to a certain extent we can say it gives extra power, but if we're going to say that, this is not the right text to draw it from, Johnny Torch. You see what I'm saying? You can make that point, but you can't make it from this text because this text doesn't say that. You know, it's not saying that. Let me see here. I'm not sure. It doesn't look like there's actually that many more questions, unless I'm just missing stuff. That's all right, because we can jump into this because it's time to freestyle. Oh, Ham Sunshine. Did I read the Talmud to make my point? I see your comment. Did I read the Talmud to make my point, my friend? No, I didn't. I showed you 4 verses that show this is a trend that was going on with scribes of the day. It shows you things have been added. I referred to the fact that older and better manuscripts don't have it. So that's a manuscript tradition that Christians were copying, right? Christians were the ones who copied these early manuscripts, and a lot of times at their risk of their own life. And I also showed you how Jesus had sanctioned non-fasting in Mark chapter 2 as long as he was with them. So I'm not getting into the Talmud. So I see you trying to be cute, but you want to be cute and right. Hey, welcome back, Sean Gregory. What's up with you, homie? All right, what's up, Michelle Marie? Much love to you. Much love to you. All right, now let's do this. All right, I'll work on making the font a little larger next time, but I don't think I'm putting any more comments up on the screen now. So we've got some more new beats, and I'm going to play some of these, and let's try to do this because we've got some freestyles at the end. All right, you guys ready? I don't know if I can rap to this. This is kind of a different kind of beat. I'm not sure. Let's try it, though. It's a dope beat. It's just not exactly my style, so we're going to try this. I want to feel this one out a little bit. I may not be able to pull this off. Check it out. Now we rockin' on this microphone, and we gonna make his glory known. Now I'm playing the beat like it was a funky jazz trombone. VOCAB Malone, spit a poem, now it's on. Here we go from the dome, gonna rock it cause it's on. Say peace out, shalom at the end of the song. Rock it on until the break of dawn. Dawn new in the house, plus Nate 2D2. Hello, how are you? Now we know coming through. It's you or you, urban artists united. Dope party, check it out, excited. Been invited to the party, sparky. Microphone, people out now, no malarkey. Like Joe Biden, campaign slogan. VOCAB Malone again, and I'm flowing like a Hogan hero. Not a Zero or De Niro. People for my people, going to the steeple. It's a Lethal Weapon sequel. Danny Glover, the people out now. Jesus Christ is my love, ya. Nah, no, I love her, not a bubba when I rock it. The people out now, we got to unlock it. And we shock it, and we rock it, cock it, please. The prom, yeah, the bomb. And now we read John Mark Luke. Those gospel books are so nice like it was a ninja. Peep it out now, I'm gonna end the session with a freestyle flow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Peep it out now, blow up like G.I. Joe or Momo in the boom, boom, boom. When I zoom, consume, now pump the volume. Ha, pump the brakes, peep it out. What you wanna say? We roller skate every Saturday back in the day. Hey, hey, on the left side. Hey, 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 on the right side. Put down the pride, go ahead, feel the vibe, rock it on, keep it out. A quest like tribe. I got the love five door, got the Q-tip. When I whip, when I flip, go ahead, take a dip in the pool, in the water for my sons and my daughters. Slap a whack MC, talking why I yada. When I dive like an otter, the I beat a bada, boom, bada, bada, bada. Do my thing, I tell you when I sing with the wedding ring. Just kidding, unless it's Jesus. Listening when I'm ripping on the beat. A VOCAB Malone, got the sandals on my feet. That's a Adidas. When I spit for Jesus, you know he sees us, you know he frees us like the boy in Mark 9 from the top of my mind. VOCAB Malone, and it's time to shine. For divine Jesus Christ, you know the one I love. Keep it out now, here like a Michael Jackson glove. Running out of breath, I need some water. Keep it out now, I be that shotter. Out, peace.